A finance analyst logs in with her own account. No malware alert, no blocked firewall connection, no failed password storm. She opens files she's allowed to open. Then the pattern changes. Late night access, large downloads, folders outside her normal projects. A week later, HR notes she has resigned. That is the insider problem. The account is real, the access is real, the intent may not be. This is where insider threat detection needs more than perimeter alerts. This is where UEBA earns a look. UEBA stands for User and Entity Behavior Analytics. Plain English, it learns what normal looks like for people, accounts, devices, and sometimes service identities, then flags behavior that is unusual or risky. A NIST-style way to frame it is continuous monitoring with context, not one event in isolation. A pattern over time, tied to identity, access, assets, and business role. UEBA is not a lie detector. It does not know motive. It gives defenders a risk signal when legitimate activity starts to look abnormal. For insider threat detection, that matters because insiders usually do not break in. They log in. They use permissions they already have, or permissions they quietly accumulated. Before UEBA, many teams handled insider risk by searching logs after something went wrong. The SIEM had VPN logs, file access logs, endpoint events, cloud activity, and identity records. But the analysts still had to stitch the story together by hand. A single file download looked normal. One late login looked normal. One access request looked normal. The risk appeared only when those events were viewed as a sequence. Data hoarding over 2 weeks, downloads outside normal hours, a sudden jump in repositories touched, new access to groups that did not match the user's job. UEBA reduces that blind spot. It turns scattered normal-looking events into a behavior timeline. Mechanically, UEBA starts with data: identity sign-ins, file activity, cloud app events, endpoint telemetry, badge or VPN records, where approved, HR attributes like department, manager, job role, and employment status, handled under policy. Next, it builds baselines. What hours does this user work? Which systems do they touch? How much data do they usually download? Which peer group are they similar to? Then it scores changes. A late login alone may be low risk. Late login plus bulk downloads plus access to a new sensitive folder is different. Strong systems add context, asset sensitivity, user role, recent access changes, and prior alerts. The output is usually a risk score, an alert, or a case for review. Here is a common SOC story. An engineer normally works weekdays, accesses 3 code repositories, and downloads small build artifacts. UEBA flags a change. Over 10 days, the account touches 9 repositories, including 2 outside the team. Download volume is 6 times the user's baseline. Several sessions occur after midnight. The SIEM has each event, but none is severe alone. UEBA links them into one case: unusual hours, data hoarding, and access scope creep. The analyst checks identity history and sees 2 new group memberships approved through normal workflow. No malware indicators, no impossible travel. The SOC escalates to the insider risk process. HR confirms the employee gave notice. Legal guides evidence handling. Access is reviewed, data movement is contained, and the case is documented. UEBA is strong where rule-based detection is weak. It can catch slow changes, peer group outliers, and behavior that is allowed but unusual. It is good for spotting data hoarding, unusual downloads, scope creep, and pre-departure activity spikes. But it has limits. It does not prove malicious intent. A late-night download may be a deadline. A new folder may be a legitimate project. Baselines can be noisy during reorganizations, mergers, or major incidents. Bad identity data weakens everything. UEBA also does not replace investigation. It points to risk. People still validate the business context, preserve evidence, and follow policy. Insider cases must be handled with HR and legal process, not just security tooling. Think of UEBA as the behavior layer in the defensive stack. The SIEM collects and correlates events. UEBA uses many of those same events to measure changes over time. Identity and access management tells you who the user is, what groups they belong to, and what they can reach. Endpoint tools show device activity. Data protection tools show sensitive file movement. Ticketing keeps the investigation controlled. HR and legal define how insider risk is handled, who can see what, and when action is appropriate. Good programs cross-reference UEBA alerts back into the SIEM, so analysts can pivot from a risk score to raw evidence quickly. If you are starting with UEBA, do not begin with every log source in the company. Start with identity sign-ins, file access, cloud app activity, and HR role data approved for security use. Define the patterns you care about: bulk downloads, access outside normal hours, new access to sensitive areas, and spikes before departure. Build peer groups carefully. Compare engineers to engineers, finance to finance, admins to admins. Then create a case workflow. Who reviews the alert? What evidence is collected? When does HR join? When does legal guide retention or employee action? Skills to learn: identity concepts, log analysis, basic statistics, privacy handling, and clear report writing. UEBA value comes from clean data and disciplined response. Recap in 3 beats. 1. Insiders log in, they do not break in, so perimeter tools will miss part of the story. 2. UEBA helps insider threat detection by connecting behavioral tells, data hoarding, unusual downloads, access scope creep, odd hours, and pre-resignation spikes. 3. The response must be controlled. HR, legal, privacy, and security all have roles. Treat UEBA as a risk signal, not a verdict. If this helped, subscribe to Security Tools Decoded, new episode daily. And if you track active vulnerabilities, this channel also publishes a daily ranked CVE brief, so defenders know what to prioritize first.